Fabio, hello. I'm going to try and pronounce your full name at this moment. Fabio Cerpelloni. Did I pronounce it correctly?
Perfect.
Oh, really?
Cerpelloni, yes.
Cerpelloni.
You pronounced it correctly with a British accent, so it's good.
How do you feel when you hear your name being pronounced by English speakers?
I feel part of a British community.
Oh, yeah? Really?
No, that's not true. No, because sometimes I don't even know how to pronounce my surname when I have to introduce myself. Because do you want the Italian pronunciation or the English pronunciation? So sometimes I say Cerpelloni, which doesn't, I don't identify with that. Cerpelloni, that's the Italian right pronunciation. But
yeah,
I don't care that much.
It just doesn't really matter that much, does it? Yeah, we shouldn't really be bothered by these things too much. There's just like all these different versions of you. There's like the version when you're speaking to English people or English speakers. There's the version when you're speaking to Italian people. Yeah, so it's kind of similar with my name when I speak to people from around the world. There's like different versions of me. There's Luke. There's Luc in France. Yeah. There's Luke in Japan. I don't know in Italy now. Thinking about
Luke.
it, how do it?
Luke.
Well,
what about your surname?
Thompson.
Okay.
In France, Thompson, Luc Thompson.
You don't seem to like it.
No, I'm fine with it. No, it's just I don't know. I like to make fun of my French hosts in France. It's kind of like normal. And French, I find in France, French people are fine with that. They're fine with sort of you making fun of them. For some reason, they quite like it. And in Japan, Luke Thompson. Not Thompson, but Luke Thompson. So, not too different. Yeah. Anyway, Fabio, nice to speak to you. We've never actually met before. This is the first time that we've spoken.
Exactly. I discovered you, I can't remember when, but I think it was through Martin Johnston. I listened to one of your podcast episodes together, and I couldn't stop laughing, really. That's how I got to discover you, yeah. How did you discover? No, you didn't discover me. I made you discover me.
I knew about you already before you contacted me. I was aware. I'd felt your presence I felt a disturbance in the force. What is that? I feel something.
It's Fabio.
It's Fabio, but we don't know how to pronounce his surname. Okay. I felt a tremor in the force. No, I mean, I was aware of you because you've done work or you've done podcasts with other people that I know, including, as you said, Martin Johnston from Rock and Roll English, also Zdenek Lucas from Zdenek's podcast, Craig Wieland, I understand, from the Mansion del Inglés. He's based in Spain. Katy Ortega from the Chatbox, Cara Leopold, Leo Listening, Daniel Goodson, My Fluent Podcast, Christian Saunders, Kangaroo English. So you've kind of, I'm basically very late to the game here in terms of Fabio. I'm like, everyone's like, oh, have you spoken to Fabio yet? No, I'm talking to him on Fridays. Like, I spoke to him last Thursday. It's like, what about you, Luke? Huh? What?
I'm not that popular.
I've known about you for a while. I think the first time was I heard you speaking to Daniel Goodson on his podcast, talking about stories. Yeah, basically. Yeah. Yes. Yeah,
I'm stealing all your guests. So every time I see, I go to your YouTube channel, I see, Luke interviewed this guy. Okay, I'm gonna ask him if he wants to come up on my show.
I won't actually ask Luke. I'm just going to kind of make my way around in this kind of... I'm going to orbit Luke for a while before finally crashing into him. Like some sort of asteroid.
Finally, I hit you.
Finally, Fabio, it's nice to be talking to you. So for this episode, the main aim, and I do have an aim that I'm attempting to get to here. The main aim is to ask you about the book that you've written. It's basically a book of true stories about how you have mastered English. And I understand it's separated into chapters, one story in each chapter. And the thing that I find... well, one of the things I find very interesting about the book is that it has a sort of a twist to it, which is that, we'll get to the twist in a moment, right? But Fabio, before we get to your book and the interesting things that are in it, I have some kind of quick questions, and you can give me short answers to these questions if you like. This is basically background context.
Okay.
Ready. So, Fabio, do you consider English to be your second language?
Yes.
Okay.
Totally.
Do you have any others? I mean, you obviously got a first language, which we have worked out now is Italian, but do you have any other languages in there too?
No, 0 languages.
Okay.
I only speak English and Italian.
English and Italian. Which one do you speak more these days, in fact?
Italian, but I write mainly in English. Well, only in English, actually. I only write in English. I actually forgot how to write in Italian. I forgot the punctuation rules. So, because I would say I'm a Italian speaker but English writer at the moment.
Okay. Yeah, that's good. Is that not a little confusing?
It is. I mean, the brain is, I don't know how it's divided, but sometimes, one part of the brain collapses onto the other. The Italian one collapses onto the English one. So sometimes I get confused. I think you have the same problem. Anyone who's bilingual, I think, you keep forgetting words. Sometimes when I speak to my girlfriend, I have to use English terms because they're more, they're quick. Or I watch stuff in English and then I don't know how to explain what I watched in Italian because all the English words come to my mind. So, yeah.
You seem to be managing it pretty well, I have to say. Okay, next question. Where are you from? You're from Italy. Do you live in Italy now?
Yeah, I live in Italy, but I lived in Australia, New Zealand, and London for a total of 6 years. Mm-hmm. And I came back in 2017.
Okay.
I started teaching in New Zealand when I got my CELTA, the certificate. And before coming back to Italy, I traveled 6 months in Asia. Best time of my life there. And then I started teaching at the British Council Milan.
Okay, teaching English. Yeah.
English, yeah.
Qualifications, you mentioned the CELTA.
CELTA, Delta, and I'm doing a master's degree in language education. I've almost finished. I only need to write a 15,000 word dissertation. So.
And how's that 15,000 word dissertation coming along? How many words have you written?
0.
Yeah, really.
Yeah, I haven't decided what to focus in on yet. I know that it's going to be on writing because, as I said, I love writing and I write mainly in English. So I think I want to help non-native English speakers write in English. So I want to focus in on that. Mm-hmm. I don't know the topic. It might be giving feedback. It might be challenges that students have when writing, these kind of things. And it's not going to be fun, I think.
Why?
Because you have to do a lot of research. You have to read academic papers. So it's not like writing a blog post or a book like I did last year. Mm-hmm. But still, I think I'll be learning a lot about writing. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
That wasn't a short answer. Sorry.
It's all right. No, it's okay. There are no rules here.
Okay.
All right. So, CELTA, Delta, master's degree, qualified English teacher. You've learned English as a second language. Did you learn it as an adult?
Yeah, in my 20s. Well, I started in Italy in elementary, high school, but as many Italians will know, classes were not that interesting.
Why not?
I mean, because we don't speak. Basically, we don't speak in English classes. We only do grammar exercises, and it's still true. Like now, I have students in a university, and they are A2 B1, and they always say the same thing. We studied English in school, but we didn't learn it because it was all, the present perfect, all the rules, study the rules, then you have to present the rules, but you never speak. That's the problem.
It's the same in France and so many other countries, of course. Why do you think this is? Why is it that school language classes are all sort of paper-based, lots of grammar and stuff? Why is that, do you think?
I think maybe because it's the easiest thing to teach, grammar, right? It's like you present the rule, there are facts, because basically they are facts, and I find that schools are good at teaching facts, but not so much skills. Okay, now you know the rule, let's have a conversation, and let's use the rules, basically. I think it's because of this. It's easy to teach grammar, so it's easy to make a book about grammar and vocabulary also. Yeah, I don't know. What do you think?
I think, I agree. I think it's probably a question of practicality, yeah. But I just picture myself as a teacher in a classroom at a comprehensive school or something, let's say they're all 12 years old, 13 years old, and there's how many kids do you reckon in the class?
In Italy?
Yeah, in Italy
more than 25.
More than 25. So let's say it's 30 kids, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, and they're 12, and they don't really see the value of learning English. It's perhaps not the most engaging, or it's not their favourite subject. Some of them it will be. But anyway, it's difficult as the teacher to manage a room of 30 12-year-olds and to do it in a second language. It's just, in terms of practicality, really difficult. And control is so important. Obviously, what we expect from teachers is to be inspiring, like in the movies, like Michelle Pfeiffer or Robin Williams or something. But in reality, that's nonsense, isn't it? Really, I mean, teachers every single day have to are as inspiring as they possibly can be, and then 10 minutes later, it's just back to the same old thing of like, put that away, stop doing that, don't touch him, so it's really hard to develop the right conditions in which those skills, those English communication, speaking skills, can actually flourish. And instead, it's more like just, okay, open your book, page 12, and
read that.
We're going to do this. We do this exercise, then this, measurable results, test at the end of the week,
And they don't get to choose, I think, teachers in public schools. Like they are told what to do. So you have to do this by the end of the year. This is the syllabus, and you can't really divert from that.
Yes.
Divert? Is that
divert.
Correct?
Sounds all right to me. Yeah. Okay. It's like, we're going this way.
Yeah.
We're doing present perfect with a test at the end of the week. Divert, quick, turn left into talking about pets.
In English. No, you're not allowed to do that, So I think teachers are, in a way, also victims of the system.
And they get blamed as well all the time. Like, speaking to... most of the time I'm speaking to French people learning English these days, but I've talked to people from all over the world. But it's most of the time it's like I get the same old stories, like French people say, "Oh, we're very bad at English," which is not really true actually. And French people can be excellent at English in many ways, but they because they don't pronounce th sounds like I do. They hang their head in shame. Oh, we have a terrible accent. it's a bit ironic there that I made fun of the accent while also trying to support
They're
them.
excellent.
I don't know. It's complicated. I'm sorry. I don't mean to make fun of French people. It's just sort of like, but I live here and I'm married to one of them, you know. But so in support of French people, well, what am I saying? So in my experience, French people will say, oh, you know, our English isn't very good in France. You know, we're not as good as the Germans, you know, obviously, which makes them feel very bad. And they say, oh, and I say, why is that? Why do you think that is? And they say, oh, it's because we had terrible teachers at school. It's always the teachers that get the blame. You know, it's like these poor teachers, you know, they're working really hard. It's not just because of the teachers. There are more complicated reasons for it.
Yeah, absolutely.
But you kind of like, so those experiences though in the classroom where you're like doing present perfect and present perfect is for an action that started in the past and continues now, but also for life experiences, and we use it with for and since and blah, blah, blah. And there's present perfect continuous, which is just really complicated, really confuses everything. Like, oh, never mind, I'll never use it, you know. So you're doing that, and then you leave school. So those things, do you think that they helped at all, or was it completely useless? Or
I think when I moved to London in 2011, and I was a lower, maybe intermediate learner, so I was a B1 speaker of English, and I was already obsessed with grammar, of course, because 20 years in school, not 20, but 10 years in school before. The only thing that I did was studying grammar. So I thought that English was grammar, so rules. But then in London, and this is what I say also in my book, I then realized that English was a language, not a set of rules. And the more I realized that I was speaking it, the more I realized that actually people understand me. The more I got motivated to speak it, and the more I wanted to improve it. I think I had a solid foundation of grammar. School helped me with that. But in a way, it was not very good in terms of self-consciousness. So I was always not afraid of making mistakes, but I was always thinking about the sentences that came out of my mouth. So, is this correct? I used the present perfect correctly. Did I use it correctly? Should I have used this? Should I have used that? I also analyzed the sentences coming out of other people's mouth. So I always listened to the grammar of the language. I don't know if that was a good thing. Well, in my book, I say that was really good. But in a way, because we haven't talked about the book yet, but the opposite of that is that, of course, you feel the pressure of being correct. So it's a double-edged sword. Using an idiom here, which I'm not good at idioms. So
well, yeah, that one's just exactly right. For this, it's a double-edged sword, and which kind of that expresses the idea that language learning is a double-edged sword, that there's always two sides to it.
Yeah. And
this is what I was talking about when I referred to your book having an interesting twist to it. So listeners, the twist is that in Fabio's book, each chapter explains essentially how to learn English, or how you learned English. Yeah. And at the end of each chapter, it says, this is how. What's the line at the end of each chapter?
This is how to learn a language.
Right. But what's the twist then?
The twist is that in the next chapter, you read a story about how I learned English, which tells you how to learn a language, but it's the opposite, the complete opposite of what you read before. So each chapter contradicts the next one. So in one chapter, I say, you must study grammar. How can you not study grammar? Because English is a language. It's got grammar. So when I hear YouTubers say, learn English without studying grammar ever, why?
Yeah, that doesn't...
It's a language. So grammar is important. But in the next chapter, I say, don't worry about the grammar. Language is not just grammar. Language is communication. Language is who you are, actually. And don't think language is just a set of rules. Make music. The chapter is called Make Music. So when you are in the real world, forget about the present perfect, the whatever, but focus on making music, which is, it's like, it's an analogy with making music, because I was a drummer many years ago, and I see that there's a connection between playing music and speaking a language. So when you learn how to play an instrument, you might want to learn, you want to improve your technique. So you sit there in your room and you study, and you do, I don't know. Okay, I don't know the vocabulary scales. Okay, for 1 hour, and that is the equivalent of doing 1 hour of present perfect exercises. You stay there and you focus on one thing only. But then when you're in a concert, when you're playing with your band, you're not there thinking, oh, is this the right scale? When you're in a conversation, why are you thinking about, is this the right thing? Is the present perfect correct here? So yeah, I don't know. Is it clear?
Absolutely.
I'm rambling as well.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I've infected you with my rambling. No, it's absolutely clear. And so, yeah, I love that idea. I love what you've done, which is to, basically give sets of advice for language learning, but each piece of advice seems to contradict the one that came before it. Yeah. And I think this does somehow get to the truth of what it means to learn a language, just as you've been saying, that there is no one single way that works every time, it's a sort of multifaceted thing, and you just have to be prepared to kind of first of all always keep an open mind, and if one thing doesn't work, you kind of stay open to trying other things, and you just keep moving forwards, always moving. And then at the same time, be willing to try all sorts of different things, and the more you do, the more you put yourself out there, the more you kind of the more progress you can make. And rather than looking for one single dogmatic rule that applies to absolutely everything, it's more just sort of like, trying to push the boundaries in every single direction all the time.
Exactly. And also, I wrote this book because when I'm on YouTube, when I'm reading stuff on the internet, a lot of teachers, we're blaming them again, YouTubers, polyglots, every time I see one of their videos, I think, but the opposite of this is also true. So what you're saying is correct. So for example, keep a vocabulary notebook. That's one common tip. Or an app, study vocabulary using an app. But the opposite of that, like not using a vocabulary notebook, I think it's also a valid advice, like a valid piece of advice, because it didn't work for me. Like having a vocabulary notebook didn't work for me. Like I'm not that organized. Maybe I started a vocabulary notebook and then I wrote maybe 1, 2, 3 words, and then I forgot, and then I looked at the words, I didn't remember them. It didn't work for me. So the opposite of that, don't worry about keeping a vocabulary notebook. Do something else. Maybe speak the words aloud and record them. That's another, it's another tip. So every time, also when they give mindset tips, don't worry about making mistakes. This is, I agree. I absolutely agree. But my girlfriend, for example, is a B2, C1 speaker of English. And she doesn't worry about making mistakes. She says, I just speak, and, if they understand me, Most of the time they understand me, so I'm fine. But if she wants to improve her English, well, I think that it's time to start worrying about mistakes. So you need to focus on being more accurate. So maybe you have to listen to maybe you need to buy a grammar book and read the rules, and that's what will advance your English. So don't worry about making mistakes. Might work for some people in one context, but not for other people. So there's always the other side of the coin. Another idiom.
Another idiom. Yeah. Ding.
Ding ding.
There you go. There's the idiom, the idiom bell. It's an interesting idea. I don't know if that's a good the idiom bell. There you go. 2 idioms. The other side of the coin. It's a two-edged sword. Absolutely, yes. I've met students who have spent so many years studying the language on paper, and they're excellent when you give them a task, a sort of a grammar task of some kind. So they absolutely nail it. Every single question is right. But when it comes to actually opening their mouths and communicating and sort of negotiating a conversation, like, for example, they say something and the other person goes, "What?" Or just like they say something and the other person misunderstands and thinks they've said something else and takes the conversation in the other direction, and that other person's like they just crumble at that point because they can't manage that. No, I meant this, and sorry, no, I didn't mean that. You said that. What did you say? You thought that I said no, I didn't mean that. No, God, oh God, English is it's ridiculous, isn't it? Anyway, they can't do that sort of stuff, but there's no. Can't really account for that sort of interaction with grammar rules. Exactly,
yeah.
So yeah, that kind of student would certainly benefit from the approach of like, don't worry about the grammar rules now. You've put the work in that regard. Now it's time to work on perhaps the more complex or indefinable aspects of communication, which is just sort of like going with the flow and trying to connect with the person you're talking to, and listening to them and reading their body language and breaking the rules of English in order to get your point across. Whereas maybe your girl, is it your girlfriend? Did you say?
Yeah.
Your girlfriend might maybe a more disciplined approach would benefit her. And also for a person moving through their journey of language learning, there'll be moments when it's important to think about the grammar and moments when it's important to just let go of that.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. So what about some of the stories in your book then? These are all personal, true stories of things that have happened to you.
I have a story. Well, every chapter tells a story.
Hold on a minute. Sorry, Fabio. We haven't said the name of the book. Can you just give us a little pitch? Can you give us the sort of the sales pitch for the book?
This is the best book you'll ever buy in your life. No, it's called Any Language You Want, 18 Conflicting Lessons for a New Kind of Language Learner. It's how many pages? 80? No, not 80. 59.
Okay, nice and concise, achievable. You can read it from start to finish.
Yeah, in basically 1 hour, maybe 1 hour and a half. And it was inspired by this book called Anything You Want by Derek Sivers. Do you want to know the story of how I?
Of course, yeah. Okay. We want stories, Fabio. Okay. You're the story guy.
Okay.
Give us some stories, please.
Okay, I'll give you some stories then. This book, Anything You Want, 40 lessons. So I didn't get creative. 40 lessons for a new kind of entrepreneur. This is 18 conflicting lessons for a new kind of language learner. So I read this book, which was written by Derek Sivers, an American entrepreneur, the founder of CD Baby, which was the major music distributor in the 90s. And in each chapter, he tells a story about how he started, grew, and sold his business. And the stories are really short, like, one page, like this is a story.
Mm-hmm.
And every story sends a message. So do this, don't worry about clients. I don't know. I'm just making this up. And when I read this, I thought, okay, I could write a similar book on how I learned English. So in each chapter, I can tell a story of how I learned English. Then I read this book by Derek Sivers, How to Live. 27 conflicting answers and one weird conclusion. In this book, every chapter tells how to live. So how to live your life. But each chapter disagrees with the next. So in what chapter he tells you, don't worry about the future. Live in the moment, because this is all you've got now. Focus on doing things today. Forget about the future. The next chapter tells you, no, focus on, think long term, don't worry about what's gratifying now. Focus on what might be gratifying in the future. So help your future self. And when I read this, I thought, okay, I can also write a similar book on how to learn English. Like one chapter, I tell you how to learn English, but each chapter contradicts the next. But in this book, there are no stories. So this is just do this, do that. He never uses the personal pronoun I, so there are no stories at all. I started writing how to learn English using this format.
How to how to live.
How to live. But it was like too dry. So I would write sentences like, don't do this, focus on that, don't worry about this. And I thought, it's boring. Like it looks like it's written by an AI machine. Then one day I was running, and when you run, I don't know if you go run. Do you go running? I think no.
No, absolutely no, certainly not.
Okay.
I totally should, but I live in the middle of Paris, and even walking in this city is a nightmare. So running, it's just no way, not possible. No, I take the metro, Fabio.
Oh, good. Yeah, maybe you get ideas. I don't know. When I go running, I get ideas. Because maybe the brain is. You get the oxygen.
Absolutely, yeah. I walk. I do the same thing with walking, and that's similar thing.
And I thought, okay, I can write a book where in each chapter I tell you how I learned English. So I tell stories like in Anything You Want. But with this format, with the How to Live format. So each story disagrees with the next. And that's how I decided to write Any Language You Want.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what was the initial question?
Can't remember. It doesn't matter. I think it was just tell us about your book. I think that's basically what it was. So we've got the overall idea of the book. This is great. 18 chapters.
Yeah.
Can you share some of the stories from those 18 chapters?
Okay. Speak like a native. So in one chapter I tell you that you should keep your accent, not speak like a native. Keep your accent. So I remember like a lot of teachers, I've heard a lot of teachers, and this is the story already, say, don't worry about sounding like a native speaker. Okay, that's not the aim, because especially for English, you don't need that, because it's the global language. Everyone speaks it. We all have an accent. But when I was living in Australia, New Zealand, and London, I wanted a native accent, because it was what helped me feel connected with the community. So when I was speaking to an Australian guy and I didn't sound Australian, to me it was weird. Like, I want to sound like, I don't know if it's a subconscious thing that you want to empathize with the person you're talking to. So why should I not speak like a native just because you're saying that English is a global language? Like, I am a person with an identity. I have a cultural background, and I might want to change my identity to fit in the community.
Yeah, to accommodate.
Yeah.
Accommodation, to accommodate to the people you, in that particular moment, are identifying with. Yeah, to
Exactly.
empathize, as you said.
Empathize.
Yeah.
So I say, when teachers tell you don't worry about speaking like a native, well, you should question that. You should actually question everything the teachers say to you. Question that. If you want to sound like a native, you're free to do it. You're free to do it. There's nothing wrong with that. And in the other chapter, I say, keep your accent. When you, I can't remember the story though. I need to revise.
Yeah, it's all right. Go into the book. Yeah, don't worry. We can edit and stuff. If you want to read directly from the page, you can. That's totally fine.
Okay. Yeah, I can read this story. So it's 20. So the chapter is keep your accent. It's 2013. I'm working as a waiter in Adelaide, Australia. It's evening time. A young couple walks into the restaurant and I approach them. Hi guys, just the two of you, I say, showing my best Australian accent. Yes, do you have a table? The girl asks. Sure. Would you like to sit inside or outside? We'll sit outside, thanks. Why are you speaking in English to him? The guy says in Italian to his girlfriend. Can't you hear he's Italian? When he said that, I heard a loud crack. It was my heart that had broken in two. Having an Italian accent when speaking English was not okay for me. I wanted to sound like a native English speaker, and my heart would break every time someone could recognize that I was Italian because of my accent. But with experience, I realized that language is not just a set of skills, sounds, and words that you can learn and master. Language is who you are. It's like a mirror that reflects your cultural identity. And your native accent is the unique music that your ancestors composed over years and years of cultural evolution. Every time you speak any foreign language, the sound of that music will be there. That melody is you. So if you're not ashamed of yourself or your culture, why would you want to get rid of this music? An American once told me I have a British accent. An Australian colleague says I have a New Zealand accent. A teacher trainer from New Zealand says I have an Australian accent. Some of my Italian students love how I speak English because they say I don't have an Italian accent, while others say they can hear clearly that I'm Italian. I don't care anymore about whether or not I sound like a native speaker of English, and I think you shouldn't worry about that either. It's almost done. What does sounding like a native even mean? For example, if you're learning Portuguese, should you try to sound like a native speaker from Rio de Janeiro or Lisbon? If you're learning Arabic, should you try to sound Moroccan, Egyptian, or Saudi? Colombian Spanish or Castilian Spanish? Should you speak Italian with my Milanese accent or have a Sicilian one? Instead of wasting mental energy worrying about this, keep your own native accent and spend time developing language areas that really matter for communication, such as vocabulary and fluency. Your accent becomes a problem only if people can't understand what you're saying. So keep it and be proud of it. This is how to learn a language.
Great, Fabio.
Thank you.
Yeah, great. Very, very insightful.
The next one is speak like a native, but we've already
covered that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very interesting indeed. Yeah. Oh, that moment when your heart broke.
Yeah. That bastard, like, he recognized I was Italian. It was like, okay, I'm gonna speak Australian. Hello guys. Would you like to sit inside or outside? But apparently, I didn't manage to do it.
Yeah. It's like when I go into a cafe in France. I went into Pret a Manger just yesterday morning. It's just like a place where you get coffee and cakes and stuff.
There.
You work or worked? Worked there.
I worked there in London.
Okay, really? Whereabouts? Can I ask?
The busiest places: Oxford Street.
Yeah.
Bond Street.
Bond Street. Yeah.
And
when can I ask? When was that? Sorry.
It was 2011.
Yeah, I might have been one of your customers.
So I might have hated you.
Yeah,
Sure.
probably. Yeah, probably. Hi, can I have cappuccino and a croissant, please? Cappuccino and a croissant for the idiot.
No, you're not allowed to do that. You know that customer service is like they're mad about customer service. You actually have a minute to serve coffee to the client because we used to get, I think it's still like this. They have mystery shoppers coming in
Mm.
and they check everything. They check the air, the sitting area, the how polite the staff members are, and how much time um, uh, you need to get the coffee. And the managers are like, I saw so many people cry in those shops.
Oh God, really?
Yeah,
That's
I don't know if it's you get 1 million downloads a week, so I don't know if it's I should say this. I'm talking shit about
Other
Pret a
coffee
Manger.
shops are available, ladies and gentlemen, and
Don't go to Pret a Manger.
well, I would say I don't know. To balance this out, my local Pret a Manger here in Paris is just wonderful, and the staff are all very
As a
happy.
customer. Okay.
I don't know.
No, it's a lovely place. It's a lovely place.
It's a lovely place, and people cry all the time. This doesn't mean it's only there. Anyway, so when I go into Pret a Manger here, well, when I went in there yesterday morning, I went up to the counter. Bonjour, un espresso avec un pain au chocolat, s'il vous plaît. And the guy said, to have here or to take away?
In English.
In English.
Okay.
And I was like, to take away.
And how did you feel? How did you feel? Like,
I just felt like, I don't know really. A very brief feeling, but lots of different thoughts all contained in that one feeling. But it was a combination of, on one hand, a little bit of shame in the sense that, okay, obviously my French pronunciation is blatantly like English, bonjour, un café espresso avec un pain au chocolat, silver plate. Obviously
plate.
On a silver plate, please. It's a bit of shame where it's like, okay, obviously my French is terrible. That's what I thought. And then another thought was like also a little bit of shame in the sense that I responded in English because I was just like, okay, all right. That's all it took for my French to crumble, for the motivation for me to continue using French just disappeared instantly. And I felt like, I should be fighting much harder to learn this language. And when I say un pain au chocolat, s'il vous plaît, and the guy goes, to have here or take away, I have to say sur place, s'il vous plaît, monsieur. Which is like, to have here, please, sir. I should have done that. But, because that's the Parisian way, is like, if someone has done something that's, even without intending to, has insulted you, you kind of respond in a fairly strict manner, quite formal. And also maybe a slight little bit of appreciation in the sense that, okay, this guy's trying to, this guy who served me the coffee and who responded to me in English, he has probably learnt English at school, like you, Fabio. He had his present perfect lessons and stuff in school, and plus his teachers and no doubt his parents and the rest of the world hammered into his head the importance of learning English. The French don't speak English. French are the worst at speaking English in Europe. We've got to speak English more. You work in Pret a Manger. The Pret a Manger is an international company. You've got to speak English. And even maybe the customer service, the wonderful HR at Pret a Manger, customer training, they probably really strongly encourage the staff to switch to English if they think it's, if they're speaking to a tourist or something, because that's part of the service. So, there was also that in me as well, which is like, okay, I appreciate the guys making an effort, I appreciate that. But it's just like, I suppose my feeling there is the fact that I have to fight for my French. Sometimes you got to fight for your language, especially if you're an English speaker. And it's very easy for me to cruise through life not learning another language. Even though I live in France, I can survive without learning French. This is why my French is kind of stuck at a certain level, because, you know, I'm
B1, is it?
Yeah, maybe B2 on a good day. Depends on the situation. If I'm ordering an espresso and a pain au chocolat, yeah, maybe I'm B2.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because I can say bonjour, you know, bonjour. I don't know, B1, B2. I'm not great. I'm not proud, you know. And so these things like push me into a fairly negative spiral of feedback about my French, where something happens and I feel a little bit bad. It's like an instant reaction. I just feel a little bit bad. And I know in my heart that I am responsible for pushing the French back into the positive cycle.
Okay. So that's the problem.
Mm-hmm.
Solution?
The solution is to be more proactive and to think positively, and to basically be a bit more disciplined and decide, right, I'm going to spend this time, you know, per week or every day practicing my French, and to apply all of the knowledge all of the know-how that I have about learning a language, because this is again all the other stuff that's piled on top of me as a learner of French. I've got all this stuff, all this language learning advice and knowledge and expertise from being an English teacher. It's all like piled up on top of me, on my shoulders, and every time I sort of fail to follow my own advice, it all crushes me, you know, and which again pushes me into that negative spiral. So, you know, Fabio, I've said many times before that you know, my French maybe is not progressing as it should be, but my excuses are improving all the time. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I say that all the time.
But maybe you should let it go. So let go of this goal.
What goal? I don't even know what my goal is, to be honest, Fabio.
To improve it.
Just to stop feeling bad about it. Because again, that's another thing, is that, I mean, as you know, you've been through this, and you've emerged, you know, as a much more proficient speaker of a second language than me, and probably spending less time with it as well. But so, as you know, when you live in the country. So I'm also married to a French person, and so we go to things like her family, or we go to dinner parties or parties. Like a party where it's only French people scares me to death, because I know that I'm going to end up speaking to someone. They're going to ask me these questions. The question they're going to ask me is, "How long have you been in Paris?" And if it's and I've got about 5 to 10 minutes of French conversation in me, and then I'm done, you know, and then I'm like, I need to go away and lie down in a dark room with a cup of tea now, you know, like, and let it all reset. It's like I'm like an iPhone 5 that's still being used today. You know what I mean? Like the battery is just on 1% all the time. I've got 1% French. And so I'll chat to someone for about 5 minutes, and then eventually they'll say, "How long have you been in Paris?" And I just like, oh God, no, I don't want to tell them that I've been here for a decade, you know?
Just say 1 year. 1 year. Well, your French is great.
And then they'll speak to my wife, who's just standing over there. And then, you know, they'll learn the truth. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I was lying. I'm lying. I'll just run screaming from the building. So the goal is almost like this. It's infinite, in the sense that really what I want to be able to do is to just sort of blend in and be myself as I am in English. And I'm quite verbose in English. You know, I kind of go on and on and on. And
really,
yeah. My mouth moves more quickly than my brain. It's like, you know, my brain is there going, wait a minute, what, and you know, so I have to just keep talking to let my brain catch up. And I cannot do that in French. I just can't be myself in French, because I just don't have the articulacy for it. So in terms of a goal, it's like the goal seems to be so far away of like the French I feel I need. So
you want to get to that level where your brain is slower than your mouth in French.
Yeah, I suppose so. Or I want to get to the level where I feel like I'm kind of be myself in French.
Well, if you really want it, then speak French to your wife every day, all day.
I've got a joke about this in my stand-up, which is that I say, so people say to me, Luke, you're married to a French woman, why don't you just speak French with her at home? And I say, well, the fact is that when I speak French, it's like my intelligence drops significantly. I'm like Mr. Bean in French, and that's not what she signed up for when she married me. You know, she didn't marry Mr. Bean. Un croissant or une croissant. You know, that's not what she married. You know, I'm trying to make the marriage work. So speaking French to her at home is not necessarily going to work. Again, another excuse, Fabio. I've got all
Well,
the
if you want to
excuses.
break up one day, you've got the perfect method, to do it.
True, that's my ejector seat. That's my eject button. It's just like, well, I'm going to start speaking French, and then she'll just be like, I can't do this anymore. We've ended up talking about my French and sort of trying to diagnose my issues with French. But I guess I was saying that I understand how it feels when, for example, you are speaking your second language and someone sort of smashes your dream by, saying, well, he's obviously Italian. Why are you speaking it's English to him? Just use Italian, for goodness sake. Yeah, it's kind of a bit crushing when that happens.
Yeah, also because in Italy we have this thing that, we make fun of people, of Italians who speak English with an Italian accent. So that YouTube is full of those videos of Italian politicians who speak bad English. Yeah, I think it's a cultural thing as well. If you want to, like in Italy, people judge you. Well, I don't want to make, this broad generalization, but normally people notice if you're speaking with an Italian accent, and they will say, ha ha ha, they will make fun of you.
Yeah.
So that's also why I didn't want an Italian accent.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I can totally understand people's reasons for wanting to speak English like a native, as it were. I can understand that. People want to sort of, when they are trying to achieve something, they want to achieve it fully, and they decide that that's what they're looking for. And also, yeah, it is a question of the fact that other people judge you. Other people from your country definitely judge you. And again, talking of the French, that's an issue that French people have too, is that they feel very self-conscious about their English because they feel judged by other people. And, there's, in a sense, like French people can't win, because if you speak English really well, then other people will kind of hate you for it because your English is so great. Like, oh, look at him with his perfect English. Who does he think he is? And then if you speak English badly with a strong French accent, and that's not even badly, or if you just fit into that sort of cliche, and then people will judge you too, and they'll be like, oh, look at him with his bad English. So people almost self-defeat. They're self-defeating. It really depends on the context. Like in France, if you're a French person learning English in France, it can be difficult because you don't want to invite the judgment of your peers. Whereas if you are outside of France, if you're in the States, if you're a French person living in America, for example, you might feel a lot less self-conscious about speaking English because you don't have other French people sort of listening in and judging you for it. So, yeah, interesting contexts. Do you have any other? What's another story that you can share with us?
Another story. Let's see. Okay, chapter 3 says plant seeds, which basically I tell a story. Sure, it's not a story. It's really an anecdote. Where I'm listening to a podcast, I hear a word that I don't know, and then I have three. I realize I have three options. So one option is to stop the podcast, look up the word in a dictionary, and then keep going. Another one is to just don't worry about it. So I just keep listening. And the third option is to try to guess what the word means without using dictionaries. And I go for option C. So I learn the word, and the message is every time you listen to something you're listening to something or you're watching a video and there's a word that you don't understand. Well, you're a language learner, right? You want to learn the language. So stop whatever you're doing. So stop the podcast, stop the video, stop the movie, use the dictionary, and then quickly plant a seed, which is, it's a way to expand your vocabulary, and then move on. So this is something that you have to do every day when you're watching stuff in the language that you're learning. It's not just about learning English. It's any language you want. So it applies to any language you're learning. The next chapter, I tell another story. In the next chapter, I say, okay, the title is Learn Unconsciously. And I talk about, I say, in 2013, I finished reading The Shadow of the Wind by Carlos Luis Zafón. I think it's great. It was a 520-page book. So imagine how many words I came across. I was an upper intermediate learner of English, and I was reading a book for native speakers. No glossary on the side, no language notes, no pictures to help me understand the story. Just pages and pages filled with words and sentences. I was familiar with most of them, but I met some words I didn't know and others I partly knew. And I say that basically I didn't look up any of those words because I could understand the main, the gist of the story. I could understand the general meaning of what I was reading. So as long as you understand what you're reading, as long as you understand, the general gist of what you're watching, well, you don't need to stop and use dictionaries, highlighters, apps, these things, because you learn also unconsciously when this is the comprehensible input theory. So expose yourself to things that you mostly understand and discard everything else. Don't worry about the technicalities, because I'm sure, I say in the book, that I learned a lot of vocabulary. I reinforced my grammar by reading that book. I reinforced my spelling, what's it called? The spelling pronunciation relationship of the words. Learn unconsciously. This is the message. And this is how to learn a language. So you can see that this piece of advice could apply to someone, but not to someone else. Like to some people, but not other people. So if you're a learner who always, you're always there with a dictionary and you can never enjoy fully a story, well, then read chapter 5 and do what I did. With my 50 and 120 word book. If you're a learner who never stops a story to look up a word, and you're complaining because your vocabulary is still too limited, well, then read chapter 4 or 3, can't remember. So plant seeds. You must do this, otherwise how can you improve? So both are valid. I mean, would you agree with this?
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've tried to come up with sort of analogies or metaphors for this before, and what I've come up with is that sort of English is a kind of like a huge building, right? And there are many different ways to get into the building. Do you know what I mean? So there's like the front entrance, and then there's like a side door as well. So the front entrance might be like the traditional approach where you study it from the bottom up and you study grammar and you look up words in a dictionary when you don't know what they mean. And, that's how you get the English into the building, right? But also there's another entrance as well, which is just to, listen or read without checking stuff. And the English is also going in that way too, that somehow our minds or our brains or, we learn language in all these different ways. There are many different streams through which English can kind of come into us, and Yeah, it's hard to find the right metaphor for it all, but I think you've done a really good job with the book. I love the idea that the chapters contradict each other. Again, I've said this before, but I think that's a very good way of demonstrating the sort of seemingly contradictory nature of language learning, and the fact that we just have to go with it. And I would say, at the end here, I would say that a lot of it comes down to positive thinking and just keep moving, always keep moving and keep positive. As long as you're engaging with English in all the various ways, the sort of studying it, but also just consuming it, using it, speaking it, as long as you're doing all those things and you try to stay positive and focused and reward yourself if you feel like you've done something well, but don't be too hard on yourself if you've failed in some way. Just see it as an opportunity to improve. The right mindset, just trying to get the right mindset, but make sure that you are doing things regularly, and a variety of things.
Yeah, there's no right method, but I think students are exposed to a lot of marketing and ads that tell them revolutionary method to learn a language, or learn English in 30 minutes. Best method to get your fluency in 3 months.
Yeah.
I wrote this book. Actually, this is the first paragraph. I wrote this book to kind of rebel against this. I use the word rebel in the book, but it's really to kind of, rebel.
Yeah.
Rebel.
Yeah. There's another Star Wars reference there. You're like...
I've never seen Star Wars.
No. You don't. You're not. I don't expect you to see Star Wars.
Okay.
The references, my Star Wars references come in just by accident. But I say that now we're talking about Star Wars and being a Star Wars fan. I say that because actually, Fabio, to be honest, if I was in your position and I'd never seen Star Wars, and then I decided I'd watch it, I'm sure that I would think it was terrible. I mean, I think I'm a reformed Star Wars fan. Honestly, because some of the new Star Wars stuff is just so shit.
Why should I watch Star Wars?
Why?
Give me a good reason, because I've never found one.
I don't know, because you might enjoy it, but I think it's a bit late now, Fabio. To be honest, I think it's been
I'm too old for that.
Not that you're too old. It's just that you've been Star Wars has become a thing in your mind, separate from the actual films. It's like it's like this. If you've never heard a certain band before, and all your friends think this band is amazing, and you read articles online about how this is the best band in the world, and then you're like, oh, well, I'll better check out the best band in the world then, because everyone says it's so brilliant. And you listen to it and you're like, this isn't the best band in the world. This is rubbish. You're like, so when something has been built up so much, then there's no way you're going to have that unique, intimate, personal experience with it that you need to become a fan of it. For example, I got into the Beatles because I listened to some of the Beatles on my own, discovered them in my own personal way, not because I read an article in Rolling Stone magazine that said, Revolver was the best album ever. And I thought, well, if Rolling Stone says it's the best album ever, I'll listen to it. And it's like, God, yeah, they're right. This is the best album in the world ever. That's not how it works, is it? Like you discover things in your own personal way. So that's why I think it's probably too late for you to enjoy Star Wars now, because it's been built up too much. And there's no way you're going to have your own unique personal experience with it. Instead, you're just going to be watching it going, what's all the fuss about? This is not all that great. The script is terrible. And,
So I have one more reason not to watch it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I think so. All right, look, we sort of got very sidetracked at the end there, away from the stuff. But we've both probably talked about language learning so much that it gets a bit exhausting, doesn't it, after a while?
To be honest, I have nothing more to say about language learning, because when I get asked, how can I learn a language? Look, it's all here. Read this. I won't get rich because of this, because I get like a few bucks for each book that I sell. Read that, and it's all there. I don't have anything. That's why on my podcast I stopped talking about learning English, because really I don't know what else to say. It's all written in this book, and everything I know, everything I studied, the master's degrees and all the training that I did, it's all here. I don't use technical terms like the comprehensible input, hypothesis, and the technical stuff that we know. But you if you're an expert, like if you're a trained language teacher, you can make those connections with the science of language learning. So I'm kind of done. I now want to help in other ways.
Absolutely. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, look, Fabio, thank you so much for talking to me and to my audience all about this, and for answering my questions and putting up with the sort of rambly nature of this conversation.
It was great.
Yeah, good. All right. Well, okay. So listeners, you can get the book, Any Language You Want is the name of the book. The name of the author, Fabio Cerpelloni.
Perfect.
Okay. Fabio Cerpelloni, Any Language You Want. You can get it in all the usual ways. There's actual physical copies of the book which can be bought, and also ebook as well, right?
Yeah, correct. It's on Amazon. It's all on major bookstores online.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you so much, Fabio.
Thank you, Luke. And I'm looking forward to having you on my majestic show. I was trying to use an idiom. I couldn't. It would have been good to finish with an idiom.
Majestic is very nice, though. It's a lovely word. Okay. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that too. So listeners, Fabio is going to invite me onto his show as well at some point. We haven't actually recorded that yet, but at some point you will be able to listen to me talking about stuff. It's probably going to be stand-up comedy. I think that's what we're going to talk about.
Not learning English a lot.
No. We're going to get away from that. We're going to talk about doing stand-up, which is a whole other thing entirely. This is. Imagine this, listeners. There's an audience of people. There are maybe 100. Maybe 600, maybe 6. Don't know, depends on the show I'm doing or that you're doing. If you imagine you're in my place here, there's maybe, let's say 50 people. They're in there, everyone's talking, there's a show about to start, and it's a comedy show, and who's going to be standing up in front of them for 10 minutes to make them laugh? It's you. That's right. You've got to go up and you've got to make them laugh. Every 15 seconds. There's got to be laughter. And so how do you feel about that?
God, I need to go to the toilet already.
Yeah. So we're going to talk about that and why someone would choose to do that and how you do it, what you say, and all of the sort of aspects of the psychology, the communication. Yeah, it's one of my favourite subjects, Fabio, but I don't talk about it as much as I would like to. So I'm looking forward to that.
Great. It's already a great start. Like what you've just said. It could be like, can you remember what you said and write it down, and you can repeat what you said on my show at the beginning of conversation? Great.
So paint a picture of what it's actually like to do stand-up. Yeah.
Paint a picture. It's an idiom.
To paint a picture, because I'm not literally going to paint a picture, listeners.
It's an idiom.
That's an idiom. I'm just going to paint a kind of a picture with words, as it were. Okay.
Right.
All right. Cool. Cheers, Fabio. Thank you. Nice one.
Bye-bye.